flesh gives birth to flesh, but spirit gives birth to spirit. I love the scene of when Nicodemus is speaking with Christ and trying to understand this concept of spirit gives birth to spirit. It's in part why I made my name Born Again Men on my social media platforms, because this idea that this rebirth is the spirit of the Father, and I would define that as it is order. It is the pathway to not following validation of the world, to be liked by the world, but that you do, it's almost a shift into a new operating system, that you're operating not on the need to be liked and validated, because then you'll just change whatever you believe to be liked. You can see that. You see that, for example, in politics. People will say one thing and another, and I think it requires discernment, because I think oftentimes there are people who are, people change their mind, authentically, but it requires discernment to know when people are appeasing, they're doing it for validation, and when people are doing it because they see the bigger picture and they were wrong. And it requires wisdom. But this rebirth, this transformation within, it's not easy, because it's so easy to get pulled into the world, to be liked by other people, to be validated. It feels good. I look back at my life. It feels good to be liked. It feels good to be liked. It's another thing to love the truth, whatever it is, that serves everybody. It serves the best for everybody. And to do it in a way that is truly powerful. And what I mean by that is that you're not imposing it on other people. This is really core freedom. True freedom is the ability that you you lead people, but you don't force them to make the decision. That's really the power. There's power there, because and the power comes from, people can betray you. People can, I think of the great scene in Braveheart where you have Mel Gibson in that scene where he's betrayed, the betrayal scene in that movie. Forgot the name of the guy who's betrayed by, but I was so captivated by that scene where he's betrayed, and because he puts his confidence in someone that he's fighting for freedom, and he's betrayed. And you can see in the betrayal that there's such a hurt there. He feels that he had such faith. He had such faith that it would play out. And the look that he gives him, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts the man who's betraying him so much more. You can see that in Judas, right? When Judas betrays Christ, Christ doesn't hate. It's that he sees the bigger picture. And what happens with Judas? He ends up killing himself because he couldn't deal with that pain. He thinks he's getting away with something, but Christ sees such a bigger picture that it's it's there's so much power. Yeah, I can't really put it into words, but I hope you follow my train of thought. Is that the following the right way has so much power, and that all of your enemies, they're not really enemies. They may get they may get validation from the world, they may get money, they may get power, but this thing that Christ is pointing to, nobody can take it away from you. People can take away money, they can take away, you can lose your friends, you can lose your family, you can lose your girlfriend, you can lose your wife, you can lose your kids. I think this is played perfectly in the movie Gladiator. When he makes a decision to follow the right path, as he comes to understand it, Maximus, he loses everything, but he ends up winning, and he ends up winning through death. He doesn't even win the personal him. He doesn't get anything, but his legacy lives on, and the inspiration to do the right thing. And he attracts people in the movie who are also on that same path, and he ends up being a light for other people around him. That to me is the most powerful thing that you can have. And it sounds very poetic when I say it, but yeah, I always get goosebumps every time I think about that, because that is the most powerful thing. And I'm flawed, I'm not perfect. I say that I want that, but I look back at my life and it doesn't always reflect that. And because this is this battle, right? This battle, the real battle is it's the battle of the patterns of behavior. How many times do we go for the expedient thing, the thing that feels good, the thing that feels comfortable, instead of the right thing? And how many times do you do the right thing and you have people around you who are not doing the right thing? And to not put that blame on them and to say, hey, you know what? This is more inspiration to do the right thing, to be that light for other people, and to continue to go down that path. And then you grow in that wisdom of why that is the right path. Because it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to do it because you see why. And that only comes from doing it. This death of this part of us that wants validation from the world, wants the world. This is the idea of what shall man gain if he gains the world but loses his soul? What is the reason for our existence here on this plane? And that is, I believe it is to seek purpose, our why, and to grow in our why, because that is he who has a why can bear any how. And the why is painful because for many reasons. One is as we grow in this why, for people are not going to like it because everybody has a different why. And if you are truly in your heart of hearts, you know that your why is the better why. You don't have to fight other people. Your fruits will bear it, your expression will bear it. And the more that you go down that, it's painful again because this part of us, this need for validation is dying. And most of the world may hate us. They may hate me, but to still do it anyway. The only way that you really, I believe, can go through that is by having such a connection with a higher truth that's more important than you. It's the only way that you can go through that. Because if you don't, then you're going to fall for the things of the world. You're going to fall for money. You're going to fall for power. You're going to fall for sex. You're going to fall for fame. You're going to fall for whatever that weak spot is. And you know what that weak spot is within you. And that's why I think fasting is such a great idea. I think discipline is such a great idea, incorporating different disciplines in your life, working out, doing these things, and to identify where are those spots that you're weak at, where are those spots of worldly feeling good that need to be overcome. And they only become overcome by being understood. And it's purpose over pleasure, not no pleasure. We're part of this world. We don't, we, there's a game to be played in this world. But when we sacrifice our purpose for that, it opens up a void, and that void becomes more compromised, and we become more comfortable, and then we negotiate or rationalize what is wrong as right. And that ends up not serving us, and it doesn't serve others around us, and we lead people to that place where it's a world of whoever makes other people feel good is right instead of what is right. And the more people that get there, the harder it becomes. And the more that you compromise yourself, the more that's harder to overcome. It's already hard as it is, and it becomes even harder. And I guess this video is really to encourage those who are on the path to continue to stay on the path, to continue to put purpose over pleasure. To deny ourselves is to follow Christ. And that's not fun because the mind will tell you all the reasons. Well, why you're giving up this? Why would you give up this? Why would you give up that? It's the same voice that Christ had to overcome when he's tempted. I could give you all this power. What makes you deny it? You have to negotiate with a part of yourself that you have to be honest with it. You say, well, I love this. I love having this feeling and I love being validated and I like being liked. It's a part of it. Understanding why that's flawed and how you're being compromised. You can be compromised with the things that you like. You have to identify those weak spots and overcome them. And that's where really true power is. That's where the idea is you can't be bought. You can't be bought. You can't be because you're serving a master that's higher. You're serving God the Father instead of the father of this world. It takes tremendous wisdom. It takes, I didn't come to this place where I'm even making this video now because I'm so holy. I came to this place because I made the mistakes. I sinned. I screwed up and saw the fruits of that. And I hope to continue to make videos to lead people the right way as I come to understand it. And it's a much harder path too, because Who wants to be the one to say this is the right way? You seem like this whole, again, holier than thou. You seem preachy, and that's something I don't want to do on this channel. I don't want to be preachy. But I also realize the problem with tolerance and accepting everybody's truth. You can't just believe everything. And that's what we're attempting to do now. My truth. I heard I heard a great quote that said, it's important to have an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. I really love that. When we put the logos first, when we put this divine logic first, true love is to love reason. And a false love is to love feeling, to be feeling good. But when we prioritize reason, then the feeling part, which is still part of our existence, is rightly ordered. And when it's not, then you have happy wife, happy life. You have, it's just, I want to be liked by you. But the realest people I've ever met are not trying to be liked. And they're not trying to just be arrogant, proud. This is, I don't care what anybody thinks. There's kind of, you know, the difference between when you're around someone who's real and who's not. The greatest conversations I've ever had, because we're all trying to seek what is the right way. And they're not afraid to have their bad ideas die. It's a conversation about ideas rather than who is right. That's it's a rare place to be. I still struggle with it to this day, because it is the place of the discernment to be corrected and the discernment to know when to correct. And just because Christ said, take out the log within your own eye before you take it out of your brother's. People like to dwell on that, but take out the log within your own eye before you take it out with others. So we're called to take out and then take it out in others so that they may go the right way. If we're all going this path to hell, well, you can't just say, hey, you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way. You got to go, oh, wow, I see where I've been wrong. I see how I've struggled with pride. I've struggled with lust. I've struggled with anger. I've struggled with shame and guilt. I've struggled with lower parts, apathy. I've been lazy. I haven't had the courage to stand for what I believe and the willingness to have my bad ideas die in the light. But once you start going this path, there's a transformation. There's a transformative process. And then you can lead people the right way. And you can discern how, when you're wrong and when you're not. And it's coming from a place of, you'll know people by their fruits. You know how people are living. There's a wisdom that grows there. And it starts with humility. So I'll end this video here, but it's just something to really reflect on. That when you start to go this path, it's not going to be fun. It's a common theme that I need to say, because I needed to hear it. It's not fun. The spiritual path is not fun. It is a death. It is the death of the ego operating. The ego is still there, right? We operate in this world. We have an ego. But to operate from the ego, that is not the right way. We operate from what is the right way as we come to understand it. And we do our best, and we enter the arena and we speak it. And then we discern. But if we never speak it, we're afraid to offend other people, then we're not really we're just as corrupt as those who are blindly living, people who are just living for themselves. So I encourage you to understand that as you go down this path, it is painful. It is going to be suffering. You're going to be hated. You're going to be mocked, ridiculed. You're going to be called a beta. You're going to be called naive. You're going to be called all these names, because the world is very dualistic. It thinks you're one way or the other, either the beta or the alpha. You're this or that. It takes tremendous wisdom when you go this straight and narrow path that very few walk down it. So they're going to put you in a box. But when you shift from personality, right? Because people are personalities. They're on the left or on the right. They're this or they're that. When you shift into character, people can't put you into a box because you're operating on a higher operating system. And to go back into earlier part of this video, that's what this death is. That's the best, that's our highest calling, is to die to the old, to die to that which we can be controlled and manipulated and compromised, because the things of the world can keep us enslaved. Our possessions end up possessing us. But this one thing that nobody can take it away from, is putting purpose over pleasure. To aim towards a vision that's bigger than ourselves. It ends up serving not only us, ourselves. This is the paradox of it, is that when we die to our lower self, we weren't really dying. We were dying to something that was old, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. We're dying to this weak part, and we're afraid to. We're afraid to be not liked. We're afraid to be called a conspiracy theorist. Who isn't a conspiracy theorist at this point? You just blindly believe what other people tell you, or do you think for yourself? So I hope this encourages you to step into the arena, and it doesn't come at once. It's a process. It's a birthing process. We take a few steps in, we go, no, I'm afraid. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Judas betrayed Christ. And in the same way, when we're around people, we see people who are in the arena, people will want to watch. People want to be on the sidelines. It's another thing to step into the arena and say, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. Because that requires a different type of breed of person. It requires men of character, men who are willing to accept these sacrifices, accept the consequences of speaking forward what is a right way in a world that wants to say any way is okay. So I hope that encourages you to take another step into the arena, to go through another birthing pain. This is the responsibility of men. I hope you take the call.